So I think we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matias Guerrero Iris, and I am the French Language for International Business lecturer and coordinator at Georgia State University. I will be moderating this event with Whitney Ariana Drew, who is a student in the French BA at GSU, and she's pursuing a concentration in French for International Business, the program that I'm directing. On behalf of the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, and the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, I'd like to welcome you to the GSU's Global Careers Expo 2020, an International Education Week event. This event has brought together organizations that work on global issues and that build global relationships to talk to our GSU students about the rewarding opportunities that await them. We know that global competence is an important and desirable skill for these organizations, and one that enhances the ability to work and communicate with diverse groups of people and to adapt to new and changing environments. If you're a student who wants to strengthen your global competence and add a global dimension to your resume, you may be interested in the Global Scholars distinction given at graduation to students who have taken at least 5 Global Scholars courses that develops global competence. Learn more by following the QR code on this screen. I believe you can see perfect. You should be able to see the QR code. Another way to strengthen your global competence is to network, to learn about different organizations that have global connections and operations, what they do, and the people who make it all happen. We are very fortunate that Mr. Rashad Thacker and Ms. Jackie Velades from the Peace Corps could be here with us today to talk about internships, employment, fellowships, research opportunities, global skills, and professional development. I will now be introducing our 2 speakers. Rashad Thacker is a Peace Corps field-based regional recruiter in North Carolina. He is a native of South Carolina, having received his bachelor's degree from the College of Charleston, where he was a board member of various campus organizations. He then proceeded to serve in the Peace Corps as a youth development volunteer from 2016 to 2018 in northern Peru. We'll have a chance to talk more about it. Jackie Velades is a field-based diversity recruiter for the Peace Corps. In her role, she does outreach to institutions and population groups that may not have an established relationship with the Peace Corps. She served as an education volunteer, specifically teaching English, and as a leadership and life skills co-facilitator in Panama from 2017 to 2019. And again, we'll talk more about this. There, Jackie worked with 10 English teachers at an elementary school to encourage and support the English language program implemented by the Panamanian government. Prior to her service, Jackie obtained her bachelor's degree from the University of Georgia in Romance Languages and Linguistics. And before I turn it over to Rashad and Jackie, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded. We ask that you keep your mics muted to reduce any noise during the presentation. The presentation will last approximately 30 minutes. After that, there will be 20 minutes for questions. We ask that you please use the chat feature to ask any question you may have during the first 30 minutes of the presentation or the remaining 20 minutes of the discussion. You can feel free to ask these questions in the chat. We will review them during the last 20 minutes of the presentation. And now I'll turn it over to our esteemed speakers, Rashad Thacker and Jackie Velades. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
We're great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. We really, really appreciate. I guess I'll start this discussion. And again, in the audience, feel free to ask your question in the chat. We're not ignoring your question. We're just having a discussion for the first 30 minutes, and then we'll go over the questions that you have for our speakers in the last 20 minutes or so. Jackie and Rashad, could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your career, more specifically, your current position at Peace Corps? Jackie, would you like to start?
Sure. So, a little bit about me. I feel like you might have covered it already in the beginning, but my name is Jackie. I'm born in Georgia, raised here. I went to school, as you mentioned, and right after getting my degree in linguistics and Romance languages, I decided to try my shot at the Peace Corps. There were reasons that I joined that I know we might talk about later, but I decided to pursue this, and eventually those 2 years became, hey, maybe I will just work here again in Georgia, coming back. And coming back from the Peace Corps, right, learning so many skills, refining them, perfecting them as much as one can. I came back here and I definitely realized there was just a gap, right? And the people that I like grew up with and who knew about Peace Corps and who actually had applied to go to Peace Corps, and it was just in that random moment that they were looking for a recruiter here in the Atlanta area, and that's what I do. So I do outreach to populations that might not have heard of Peace Corps, and that's the information that I'm trying to share about opportunities, what doors can open after you join the Peace Corps, right? Thinking post Peace Corps in your career. So that's the work I do. A lot of meeting people, a lot of coaching people, because some people just don't know, right? And they want to be competitive in the application process. So that's a little bit about what I do here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. And yes, we'll have more opportunities to talk about what you do and the process of applying for Peace Corps and field work once you're abroad. Rashad, could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, your career, and your current position at Peace Corps?
Sure. So yeah, like Matthias said, my name is Rashad Thacker, and I'm the regional recruiter for Eastern North Carolina. I am originally from South Carolina, born and raised. Grew up there whole life. Went to College of Charleston for a degree, and during College of Charleston, I was able to study abroad, which kind of really sparked my interest in traveling. Before that, I had never really I'd never even been on a plane, right? Much less been to an airport. So it was just really life changing, I would say, to have that experience. And, you know, two plus two equaled four. And I ended up at Peace Corps, and, things have been working its way in that kind of direction ever since. And I'm really happy to be here today with Jackie, right? My career personally is not this per se. This is just a job right now. I do a lot of what Jackie does, just in a wider region, right, with more universities. Jackie specifically focuses on like diverse institutions, and I focus on all of Eastern North Carolina, right? So my career, hopefully, after this, I'm right now pursuing graduate school for a master's degree in international affairs and public policy. And I'm hoping to use that later on to transfer into another governmental department, right? USAID or something along those lines.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rashad. Um, that's great. And again, the audience, if you have any specific question, feel free to ask them now and we'll go over them at the end of the presentation. And before we talk more about the recruitment and applications for Peace Corps, I would like to talk a little bit more about your experience as volunteers, because you both were volunteers for Peace Corps before um, working and dedicating your career to Peace Corps. Jackie, you were a volunteer in Panama, and Rashad, you were a volunteer in Peru. Um, so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about this experience. How long did you stay there? What did you do? Maybe you could describe a typical day, and I believe you have some pictures to show us. Rashad, would you like to start?
Sure thing. So yeah, these are some pictures of me in my service. I served from 2016 to 2018, so a little over 2 years. maybe about 2 years and 3 or 4 months, give or take. But my job primarily consisted of youth development. So these are some of the pictures here at the school on the right, and to the left, working with young people on the beach for a beach cleanup project. Um, my job specifically required me to work with at-risk youth, training them for life after high school, essentially, right? Usually in Peru, you graduate from school at 16, and you have to wait 2 years really before you get any kind of formal higher education or before you can apply to a job. So during that gap year, a lot of students' ambitions kind of fall off. And a lot of my work was working with them to make sure that they would stay on the path and could find clear and accessible pathways to higher education or to pursue career opportunities that they were interested in, right? And not just get, kind of stuck in like the same old job that they had been doing, right? Helping out their families on the farms or in local stores. So that's kind of a little bit of what I did. But yeah, some of these pictures on the right, these are two of my counterparts, or socios, as we call them, in Peru. And we worked together on the left, primarily to form like sports teams. He was the PE teacher. So, I was able to form a women's soccer team as well as a co-ed basketball team after, teaching the rules and regulations of basketball. There are way more than you would think, way more than I definitely thought there were. And on the right, this is the substitute teacher for band. I was also able to help start a band class during service. And that band has gone on to, compete in regional competitions around the state of Lambayeque in Peru, which is the northern province that I lived in.
Wonderful. And I'm sorry, for how long were you in Peru?
So I was there about 2 years and 3 months, just about, maybe a little longer. But yeah, that's typical of the assignment of a Peace Corps volunteer. It's usually 2 years and 3 months. The first 3 months are going to be strictly training, right? Kind of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, kind of business casual. And then the 2 years are going to be your actual, you living in your community, doing your, desired project goal.
Okay. Was it hard to adapt?
How, uh, yeah, I would say yes for me personally, right? Going to a new place is never going to be easy. But
Mhm.
I was very fortunate to have a staff that was very caring, and about 52 other people who were in my shoes, right? That didn't really know what was going on or really didn't know how to connect to this culture. So I was lucky to have them kind of in my corner, and we kind of guided each other through the process.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's a question that's probably going to come up in the discussion at the end. Is how do you feel? I think a lot of our audience, participants in our audience, have never left the US, so that's probably a question that will come up. Well, thank you, Rashad. Jackie, could you please tell us a little bit more? Did you have more pictures, Rashad? I'm sorry. Is there another
I
slide?
think there's one more slide after this one. So if you
Yeah.
want to skip over that and then go to Jackie, and then we can come back.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Do you want to, yeah, perfect. Wow. Do you want to just tell us quickly about these three pictures?
Sure, yeah, just very briefly. To the left is a vacation I took with my best friend at the time. He was, you kind of figure out your best friend in Peace Corps. And Cliff was mine. He's a kid from Chicago. And we went everywhere together pretty much. But this is us sitting at the top of Puno, which is the city that borders Lake Titicaca on the edge of Peru and Ecuador. So that's just us on vacation enjoying it. It was incredibly cold, but it's also really hot because you're really close to the sun up there in the mountains. So he has on a jacket, I have on a tank top. It's kind of a blend of both worlds. On the top right, this is a despedida, or a going away party, for Renato here in the middle. He was our regional coordinator, so he was kind of the point contact for volunteers in the region, right? Peace Corps can't have all of their staff everywhere at one time. So each region kind of has a designated host country national or person that is originally from that country, they are kind of designated as your point of contact for Peace Corps. And
Mhm.
so this is Renato. He had a going away party. Him and his family were given a new role in Huaraz, which is the mountain city. It was about 12 hours away by bus. So this is us celebrating with him one last time. The bottom right is Laguna 69 or Lake 69. And this is a very popular hiking destination. I hiked this glacial lake maybe 3 or 4 times. I want to say the elevation is about 14,000 feet or something crazy high. It was bad. We always had to take, Advil or something with us
Mhm.
to make it up the mountain okay. But yeah, the views at the top were just amazing. And yeah, I was really glad I was able to do all of this with kind of my friends that I made during service.
Well, thank you, Rashad, for sharing those pictures and those memories with us. Uh, Nobody can travel right now, so thank you for making us travel. We really appreciate it. Jackie, shall we continue the journey? Could you please tell us a little bit more about Panama and what you did for how long? How was it?
Sure. So my time in Panama was 27 months, as Rashad mentioned. First 3 months were training, and then 24 months or 2 years of actual service. So as an education volunteer, I taught English, was like 50% of my work. In reality, it was more like 75%. And then the other remainder was teaching English, leadership, and life skills. So not only youth development, but adult development, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
We're working with, other peers that were my age in the community I was assigned to, or the youth, or older adults. We're just trying to find ways, maybe teaching English or a skill set, or just having them be a baking club. So you can see here that I primarily was at the school, so that's why you see a lot of children there. So I would go there Monday through Friday from 7 to 1, and I worked with 10 English teachers. And it might sound overwhelming, right? Like 10 English teachers, elementary school. But the way it was done was that each teacher sort of decided to sign up to work with me. And as we know, not everyone, or maybe in some cases, but not everyone wanted me in their classroom. And I respected that, right? I wasn't going to go and say, no, you need me though. Some teachers just said, hey, Jackie, I would prefer to work with you outside of the class. And maybe we can do a conversation club because you know different English. You're a native speaker. I learned it, so I don't get new vocabulary coming in. So that's what I did with some teachers. I primarily worked with like the lower levels in the elementary school. They were super motivated to work with me. And you can see here, so I would work with them in this during the day. I would either co-teach or co-plan. As you notice that I was never alone because we were there to work with them, not like take over the classroom in any way. But you can see here, some of the projects that we ended up doing were like fundraising projects too, where all of us just like joined in to create a mural. And to create the mural, because we had no money, we decided to do a character day. My days usually ended after working at the school, going to the hostel to teach English with other individuals my age that were residents of the town, and we would just practice directions with games. And then my day would end with going with my host family in the middle. And then, of course, you see more pictures of working with the youth on the right. And then on the next slide, you can actually see, yes, these are all my counterparts at the schools. So that's all of them in one picture. And then the ones that were super, super motivated to work with me are on the left-hand side in front of the mural that we created. And in the middle, the two men there on the left-hand side, they're actually the principal and the assistant principal that were just as motivated to work. So it was definitely a great time. And over the summertime, I would do summer camp activities. So there's always flexibility in this school year of like what you can focus on and reprioritize as the times go.
Well, thank you, Jackie. These are wonderful pictures. Thank you for sharing your experience in Panama with us. And again, if you have any questions, the audience, feel free to ask questions. I believe we have received one question so far. We'll go over your questions at the end of the presentation. So, what would you say was the most rewarding aspect or the most rewarding part of your experience abroad with Peace Corps as a Peace Corps volunteer?
For me, the most rewarding part was building these relationships in my community where I was assigned. I learned setting that groundwork, saying hi, building that trust at the beginning really led to fruition, right? A lot of cool projects, a lot of collaborative efforts, not only in the school, but with the parents there and with my host family, and just everyone felt comfortable in approaching me. So for me, that was the most rewarding part of just relationship building.
Mhm. What about you, Rashad?
Yeah, I think I would echo Jackie, and it was definitely the relationships. I talk about it a lot. The friends I made and the people that I ended up working with, who somehow became family, were very important parts of my service, and they really made an impact on me and my future career choices and paths and all that kind of stuff. So definitely the people I was able to meet were the best part.
And how does that impact your career? You mentioned that it impacted your career. How does that make you? How did that experience make you a better? So you kind of talked about how it made you a better person, how it helped you on a personal level. How did it make you a better professional
Right.
in this globalized world that we're living in?
Yeah. And that's just it, right? You said it yourself. It is a globalized world. So being able to really understand people's problems and perspectives from a different viewpoint, because a lot of times us as, statesmen or Americans, right? We look at things from an us-centric viewpoint, and it makes it a lot harder to do our jobs, I think, with compassion or with acknowledgement of other people's, hardships, right?
Mhm.
So, me now, when I originally graduated from college, I got a degree in studio art and art history, and those are things that I'm still very much passionate about, and someday I do hope to pursue. But for right now, I understand kind of that the need is elsewhere, right? For me, anyway, and so that's why I'm hoping to pursue a graduate program in international studies or international affairs and public policy, right? So that I can do that work and try and help as many people as I can right now. And then, when the time comes, I can go back and do some of the fun stuff, right, for myself.
Right. And thanks, Rashad. What about you, Jackie? How did this experience make you a better, a more competitive professional on the job market and in this globalized job market that we have to compete in?
Yeah, so it definitely did help with especially coming into Peace Corps. I think most of us did serve, so it's kind of cool, like, oh, we all served, yay. But in terms of when I was applying to jobs, right, everyone wanted to hear in my interviews, tell me about your Peace Corps service. Or the question was, oh, well, you already probably did this in the Peace Corps, but to ask, tell me about a time where you had to overcome a challenge or you
Mhm.
worked in an unstructured environment, right? These are common questions. And because that was the first thing people would see on my resume immediately, they're like, oh, well, we know you've done this, but for the protocol, we're still going to ask the question. So I just felt like, oh, I'm relieved that I don't have to, be so nervous when I felt comfortable that people knew more about Peace Corps and, they could understand all the nuances, right? The pros and then like where we have to work. But for me professionally, at least working here in Peace Corps now, that aspect of relationship building, we still have to do that all the time here in our roles as recruitment. So always recognizing that an effort is not just my effort or someone's effort. It's better if it's everyone's effort. So that's
Mhm.
why everything who I am today professionally is because of my time there.
Wow, that's a pretty big statement. Yeah, I think it's having an experience with Peace Corps just so shows so much about the applicant, uh, whether you're applying to pursue your career at Peace Corps or for any organization, any corporation, or even if you're applying to a graduate program or anything, having such experience just shows so much about you. Which leads me to my next question. So you're both recruiters for Peace Corps. And so I'm asking you this next question as recruiting experts. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the recruiting process, and more specifically, what is it that you're looking for when you're reviewing these applications of people that are wanting to work for Peace Corps or, volunteer for Peace Corps? What are the 2, 3 most important skills that any applicant should have, and those most important skills that you're looking for? In other words, who is the perfect applicant?
I'll take a try at this. Rashad, please feel free to add. So I would say definitely one thing I do want to clarify, right? We don't review the application itself. We do outreach and we do support any individual in crafting their application. So it is right at the top of the pile is what we like to say. So the first thing individuals are always looking for is someone who is flexible. We understand that people have reasons for wanting to go maybe to one country or one region, but sometimes life doesn't work out, or maybe there's a position elsewhere and they're like, hey, you would be perfect over there. Do you want to be considered or move to that group? And if someone says yes, and it's like, perfect. If someone says no, we're like, oh, you're kind of stuck here. So flexibility is always, I would say, one of the top qualities. And then for one thing I see is like experience, right? Related experience. Show that you have an interest in whatever you're applying for. Don't just apply on a whim, but if you want to be an education volunteer, show that you might have tutored, or you have a teaching degree, or an ESL, right? Volunteer. Show those things that you're passionate about. Show that you want to work with the community here as much as you would like to work with them overseas. And then the third one I would say is someone who's just willing to learn. Sometimes people don't realize that you will be learning as much as individuals where you are. If not, you're learning more. So don't feel like it's only you teaching everyone. No, in no way, shape, or form. It's an exchange. So just someone who would be someone who is humbled by that and willing to just take it all in. I don't know if Rashad, you'd like to add anything or edit one of mine.
No, I think the three that you said were pretty spot on to what I would say. Flexibility is number one priority, right? Make sure you know who you are and you know what you can handle. Though, with that being said, right, some people hear the flexibility and they say, yeah, I want to be like the most flexible person I can and do this and that for Peace Corps just to get in, and then you realize that you have some particular problems with some of the places that you may be put in, right? If you're a warm-blooded person or and something like that, and you say you can send me wherever, and then they send you to Ukraine, and then you have a tough 2 years. We want you to be flexible but within reason, right? Understand who you are and why it is exactly you're applying. We love to see people that love to help other people, right? That's what we are at the heart of it all. So just really know what your intentions are when you go through with this application.
Wonderful. Thank you. Those are great suggestions. And we're almost at the end of our discussion. So I see great questions in the chat, but please add more. We have time. So any question you can think of, Whitney will read them to our speakers today. My next question is, how do students in the audience today learn about opportunities with Peace Corps? And maybe Whitney, we can go to the next slide, the one that has, yes, perfect. So could you please tell us a little bit more about how can we apply to to at Peace Corps? How can we see the list of missions or fieldwork opportunities that we have?
Yeah, sure. So on our website, that's the number one priority, right? Going to our website, there will be a drop-down box under volunteer, and you can
Do you
look
want to
at.
click on it, Whitney? Do you want to? Is it the first link, Rashad?
It should be or openings. See current openings.
The current openings? Yeah, perfect.
So that's the one you'll follow, and it should, take you to what is available right now. I'm pretty sure we have about 51 positions open right now, just in various regions across the world, covering topics from, economic development all the way to community health, right? So, whatever it is you're interested in, Peace Corps does try to have it. There are also secondary projects that you can do, right? That don't have anything to do with your main goal, and they're more so for you as a volunteer to get that kind of cross-cultural collaboration going on. So yeah, starting there, looking at the openings, and then the next thing would be contacting a recruiter, right? Talking to someone like myself or Jackie in the area. There are more than 70 recruiters across the United States. We even have people that cover Hawaii and Puerto Rico. So, you will find someone near you, right? They will be able to help you. We want to help you. We can take a look, like Jackie said, at those resumes, at your motivation statements, and make sure you are putting together your best effort, right? Before you go ahead and apply. So there's a little bit of starter work before you get to where you need to be, but we're happy to help you get there all the same.
Wonderful. I think we're having a little technical issue with the links, but we'll send them. We'll send them on the chat at the end of the presentation, and we'll send them to all the participants by email. Thanks, Rashad. Jackie, do you have anything to add about the application process?
To add to that, right, if you are weary of something, feel free to reach out to a recruiter. That's why we're here. I did include some links to some recordings. I think individuals, the questions I get a lot are related to like identities, or maybe a situation, right? Your first gen or financial benefits, like anything. It's all on the website, or if you don't find it on the website, reach out to the recruiter because they're plugged into the information. And when you learn about benefits, it's pretty cool to see what could come about Peace Corps. But I would really recommend, right, if you don't see what you're looking for there, reach out to the recruiter and they will guide you in the right direction.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I believe we're at the end of our the first part of the discussion. Now we're going to give the audience the opportunity to ask you questions, Jackie and Rashad. So I will let Whitney, who is moderating this event with me, ask you the questions. And the audience, don't hesitate to add more questions as we go.
Hello again to you both. We have quite a few questions. The first one is, how well did you know the language before starting your volunteer role?
Not at all. I was very bad at Spanish. I had what we would call a working knowledge. Didn't work so well. So I was very bad. I tested in, you do have to take a test before you go to country. So I tested in at Bajo or Novice Low. So it's the lowest possible score you could get. And from there, I worked myself up to near fluency. I would say my Spanish is still pretty good. At first, it was held together with duct tape and string. And now it can fully stand on its own, I would say.
Thanks.
I was a heritage speaker, so it was easier, but there were still a lot of words and grammar and everything that I had to learn. And just to be clear, only the countries in Spanish-speaking Latin America have that language requirement. Most of our countries do not. And those few that do also ask for French, but you don't have to be fluent in the language.
Awesome. And to continue, we have another question specifically for you, Jackie. This is to go on to something that you said when you were presenting. Are the counterparts other Peace Corps volunteers or people that work at the school, or neither?
The latter one. So the counterparts are individuals, in host country nationals. In my case, they were Panamanians. So they were all English teachers at that school.
And then throughout both of your times abroad, did you ever feel homesick? And if you did, how did you manage it or get over it?
Yeah, of course, I felt homesick, right? It's hard to be away for 2 years and some change. But we are very lucky, I think. I don't think a lot of people like realize it, but like this thing right here, it's great, right? Like I can talk to anybody, anywhere. So, I would set up frequently phone dates like with my family. I'm just like, hey guys, like, let's chat, let's catch up, let's talk, right? And it led to a lot of really good communication between me and my family that I don't think was there before. I am from a lower socioeconomic status, and so having them visit was not really a possibility. So they unfortunately did not get to visit, but other volunteers that I do know, their families are able to come and to hang out and spend time with them. My best friend was able to come from college, and we managed to go on a vacation. We went and hiked Machu Picchu. So we spent a lot of time together, and it was good to just feel a bit of home, at home in Peru. So yeah, it was not too hard to get over it or manage it. We have a lot of resources available that we don't even think about, right? That we take for granted.
Was there only one Peace Corps volunteer per school? Did you come up with all the projects on your own, or did you have others who you could bounce ideas off of?
So that one will depend on where you go, because each country is different, right? Population, geographic, everything, right? So in Panama, it was one volunteer per community that had requested a volunteer. So I was the only one in my school. And in terms of how those projects came about, that's actually a cool part about Peace Corps. You have to, everyone, including Rashad, no matter where you go, you have to do a community needs assessment where you have to go in the community and you have to figure out like, okay, where are the gaps? Where can I realistically input? And what do you want to see done, right? And you try to figure that out. And then you kind of present it to everyone and the community. So for me, it was the school community, like the PTA, the administrators, all the teachers. They all came and they all voted on what they wanted me to prioritize. And that's how I came about with those projects, was just listening the first 3 months to everyone and their suggestions and trying to compile that list.
Yeah, I would just agree with Jackie. We did a lot of community assessment. We had to write a report on it, and we got guidance. Yeah, you have to write reports too. This is a real job, believe it or not. So yeah, we had to report to our supervisors and come up with game plans and action plans on how we would create change within our communities.
Were you able to retain any connections with your host country after returning back home?
Yes, 100% yes. I am still very much friends with my friends from Peru. They were all around my age, so we have just kind of grown up together and settled into life together. We meet up maybe every 2 weeks or something and like play Among Us or other video games and things like that. So it's always a really good time to be able to connect and talk with them. Supposed to visit them this year, but this year happened. And just not a possibility, but hopefully next year or sometime in the near future I'll get to see him.
Yes, WhatsApp is my best friend here, keeping in contact with my host parents. So I definitely do hope to visit them as soon as we're able to.
What does planning look like to teach English? Do you rely on pictures a lot, or do you rely a lot on the native language of the students?
Oh, like teaching in a classroom?
Mm-hmm.
So it will depend on the planning format that is being used by the teacher. At least I'm speaking on behalf of where I was, right? I'm not going to speak for every school, but for me, working with teachers, planning involved, right? They would tell me what was on their curriculum that they had to cover this unit. They were telling me where they were in the book because they had to follow this English book that was given like a textbook. And they're like, we have to hit these marks. These are our objectives. Boom, boom, boom. How do we make it fun, right? How do we teach the verb to have in a fun way where we are working on their pronunciation, on writing it? So that was the fun part, right? They had the structure, and together we would bounce off ideas of how to make it engaging, especially to such little ones. So it was all done in English, but as you can imagine, it's a lot of repetitive, but the students were able to capture it really well. Like they knew like, oh, sit down, be quiet. Like they could repeat that. So we knew they were capturing things. So we just had to be mindful and repeat things for a while to little ones.
And what about you, Rashad?
So I did not teach. So I don't really have a sense of what it looks like to plan lessons or anything like that. I spoke in the native language. I spoke in Spanish 24/7.
Are there any other volunteering opportunities that are less than 27 months?
So yes and no. We do have a Peace Corps response program, and those programs are shorter term. They last between 3 to 12 months, but they're also high intensity programs and typically require that you either have been a Peace Corps volunteer in the past or have a significant amount of experience in a particular field. And those are usually between like 5 to 10 years worth of experience in a field. So, we do have shorter term opportunities, but they're for people that may be a bit further along in their careers. And if that applies to you, please, feel free to reach out to a recruiter and talk to us about it.
Are there any particular daily habits that you both found effective for helping you adapt or to help people better?
In terms of adapting, for me, daily habits that I took up early on, when I first in Panama, right, we had the first 3 months of training. And then after we officially become a volunteer, we did another 3 months of integrating into where we were assigned. So the daily habit that I picked up was saying hi to everyone because that's what the community did. And I picked it up because I wanted to further integrate. So I would say hi, hello. I would stand in front of the school with the uniform checker. It's one of the daily habits that I would do there, but it was always greeting. And I actually brought it back with me to the US. I didn't realize. So having someone here tell me, hey, don't say hi to them. We don't actually know them was a little interesting coming back with that culture shock. But that's one thing, right? I do as the community was doing was what I was trying to replicate.
Yeah, for me, a daily habit that I picked up is a little weird, but is watching movies with my host family, right? My language was really bad in the beginning, like I said. And so sitting down and like watching movies with the host family was definitely a way to adapt and to bond with them. And it was very lucky that there were like a lot of movies that I had seen, like Demolition Man or something would come on, and I'm like, wow, it's great. This is in Spanish, like Jurassic Park in Spanish. Like, let me figure out what's going on here. Like, I know the lines word for word. So, figuring out what that was really helped me to, fit in a little bit better. And it helped me to, figure out what their interests were, right?
And this is another question for the both of you. What made you guys decide to volunteer with Peace Corps? And like, what explicitly made you decide which kind of volunteer you wanted to be?
So everyone is going to have their reason. But for me, it was reconnecting, wanted to appreciate things, just being a first generation American from the perspective of my parents in some way, shape, or form. And the second was because I wanted that professional network. I didn't have that growing up. So one thing with Peace Corps, right, as I was saying earlier, when people hear Peace Corps, they're like, we know what that is. Oh my goodness, right? So you're able to find people in all these different fields with Peace Corps. You might have nothing in common, did not go to school in the same part, but when you mention Peace Corps and they do, it's automatic bond. So professional network and reconnecting were my reasons for joining.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to a study abroad program the summer before between junior and senior year, where I got to study architecture in London and Paris during that summer, and that was the first time I'd ever really been out of the country, first time I'd been on a plane, and I was super scared, but it was a really fun opportunity, and I really was able to open up my horizons and open up my mind to traveling outside of the U.S. And once I had done that, I had been looking for ways to reach people with my art and to try to help them with art. And I was considering going for like an art therapy route. But Peace Corps was the opportunity to travel and to travel for a longer amount of time. And so I wanted to hop on that opportunity as quickly as I could. I was also applying for a bunch of other things at the same time. And I made it to the final round of all of those, but just Peace Corps, something about it called to me, and I just went for the opportunity.
What do the agricultural and environmental volunteer opportunities look like? What does a typical day look like? And what training do you receive beforehand?
So I was lucky enough to work with a few agriculture and environment volunteers. So those opportunities, depending on agriculture and depending on well, they all kind of just depend on where you are. In some forms, you might be an aquaculture volunteer, right? In Zambia, for example, working with fish farmers locally and trying to figure out how to, bring in a better harvest for them. Working in Peru as an agriculture volunteer, you might be working in like bosques or forests, like large swaths of reservations, trying to combat deforestation within the rainforest and things like that. As an environmental volunteer, you're going to be doing a lot of probably engineering and like water and sanitation work, at least from a Peruvian context. That is what those volunteers did and what I observed. So a typical day is kind of hard, right? It really depends on where you're at. A lot of times you're going to be up when the sun comes up in those jobs because you're going to be working with those people in that community. You're kind of adhering to their schedule. And you'll be going to bed when the sun is down. So those are going to be long, tough days of work. You probably out in the field, but depending on who you are and what kind of volunteer you want to be, you could work completely from an office if you would like, right? If that's your kind of vibe. It is not maybe the best way to bond with a community, but it is an option, right? Peace Corps. That's the great thing about Peace Corps. There is no really like defined or set, course load or schedule that you're going to follow. You're not going to be going in every day punching a clock and then clocking out at the end of the day. Training for everybody. You're going to have, like we said, that 3 months of training, and that's going to be very intensive job training, language training, medical safety and security as well, cultural sensitivity and history training. So you're going to be doing all of that within 3 months. And then that job training, it doesn't matter who you are or what kind of experience you have. You don't know that country's personal context. So everybody's going to kind of get the same training across the board on, these are the country's, most up-to-date problems, and here's how we are combating them in collaboration with that country that we're serving in. So a lot of your training is going to be like that. It's going to be very, at least in my experience, it'll be very, informative, very interactive, and it will have you more often than not out of your seats, engaging with people in the community around you, and just trying to figure out how to, do your job in that context.
Do the volunteers get living financial assistance for basic needs?
Yes, they do. So you get a living stipend every month and a housing stipend. and you get full medical and dental coverage as a Peace Corps volunteer.
And how early in advance should someone apply if they wanted to apply to Peace Corps?
If you are thinking about applying and you want to leave, you should probably schedule that out about a year in advance, right? Right now, our like nearest deadline, quote unquote, because everything is so uncertain, would be January 1st. And those programs are hoping to leave in, August or September of next year. So if you're hoping to leave, next year, January would kind of be your cutoff point for that destination.
How does Peace Corps ensure the safety of the volunteers while serving abroad?
Yeah, so Peace Corps, right, they will do everything to prepare you to keep you safe and healthy, but they can't guarantee 100% you will be safe, as I cannot guarantee everyone's safety in this country here in your day-to-day. So they will absolutely work with you, their safety and security officers, to reduce all of those. So know that there are systems in place keeping an eye out for you and your safety. It's our top priority.
And then for the both of you, was this your first time, like full-time job, volunteer assignment after college?
It was my first like big job, yes, but it wasn't my first job. I worked at two full-time jobs. I worked at Chipotle and Jimmy John's, right in my college town, like right after I graduated, and I did that right until I left, right? Because a lot of times, you are just waiting, right, for Peace Corps to kind of start. So some people need to fill that space. You got to pay rent, you got to pay bills. So I did have those two full-time jobs right after college, and then it led into Peace Corps.
For me, it was, my first, I guess, full-time real, because I was working. I graduated in May, and there was like a gap from May to February of the following year. So I did work at a juice bar in Atlanta.
I have a question for you both. I'm very interested in languages and cultures. What was that like? Aside from doing the work, what was it like being immersed in a different culture?
It was great. It was really fun, honestly, right? Like I didn't know people like existed the way that they do, or thought the way that they thought. Like I was just very immersed and taken in by the culture, especially Peruvian culture. It's so friendly and inviting, and it was just really wonderful to be able to feel so welcomed into that. So yeah, it was really easy for me to blend into that culture and to become a part of it.
Yeah, it was wonderful on my end, right? It was wonderful, but of course there were bumps on the road, as many individuals will say about their Peace Corps service. But something about it though, like it's just being able to celebrate, like right now it's the month of Independence Day. So they have Independence Month in Panama, and just being able to celebrate with parades and like all this joy. And I remember texting my friends that were back here, and they're like, oh, it's just November. So that was really fun to just be somewhere where it's just different and you are able to partake in that respectfully. I would highly encourage everyone to try, right, if you can.
And I know a lot of your assignments have host family requirement for like the first part. Were yours required the duration, or did you just choose to stay because you loved staying with the host family?
So in Peru specifically, it was not required for the duration. You had to stay with your host family for a minimum of a year, though. And since it was already a year, most people just decided to stay. I did not, right? There was, like Jackie said, there are some bumpy moments, right? And so I had a few bumpy moments and decided to move out from my host family, and I started living alone, cooking for myself. I was able to have a lot more freedom and control over my diet, and it was nice. Ended up losing a bunch of weight, running a marathon, and it was just a really fun time, right?
I enjoyed my time with my host family. I have two in Panama, and my first one was during training. My second one was in the community. So something about staying with them just felt like they were my other piece of home. When I felt homesick, I would go to them, or when I was sick, my host mom would always be there with the home remedy that she had on hand. So I loved it.
Wonderful. I think do we have any more questions, Whitney, or?
It doesn't look like we have any more questions.
Wonderful. So if you have more questions, I believe our speakers gave you their contact information in the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out to them. I'll also I just sent the links for the recordings one more time because the ones that I had sent earlier apparently did not work. So I believe you can now access them. And I'm also gonna send my email address if you have any questions about the French programs at Georgia State University. If we do not have more questions, I think we can end this session. So I would like to thank Rashad and Jackie for taking the time to be here with us today for sharing your experience at Peace Corps, your pictures, your suggestions, your experience. I think we learned a lot from you. I also want to thank all the organizations that have participated in the Global Careers Expo today. We appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us. To our students in the audience, you will receive a link to a short feedback survey by email. Please take a moment to share your thoughts. Your input will help us plan our next Global Careers event. If you plan to attend another session today, check the program schedule in your email for the next session time and Zoom link. Again, I am Matias Guerrero-Eres. I'm the French Language for International Business Lecturer and Coordinator at Georgia State University. So if you have any questions about French programs, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you also to my co-moderator, Whitney Ariana Drew, who's a student in the French BA at Georgia State and helped me facilitate this event. Thank you to our two speakers. One more time, Rashad, Jackie, thank you very much for your time. And thank you everyone for attending this session. And we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.